really excited because today I'm starting a brand new message series. That's what we do here is I'll take several messages and unpack them over several weeks, kind of like episodes. I would love for you to join me for this whole series, to just come back on the following few Sundays and get this whole series. And it's a really interesting concept. Here it is. The message series is called Instant Results. Instant results. And here's where it comes from is the other day I was online and I was doing some very, very, very important stuff. I was doing sermon research and fantasy football research at the exact same time. And which, by the way, I had a great draft. I mean, just really a great draft. But I noticed this ad on the side of my browser that said, lose 30 pounds in 30 days. 30 pounds in 30 days. And I'm like, that can't work. And the longer that I'm sitting there, though, the more I'm thinking, but what if it did work? And like the tension's building, and I just start thinking about, man, I would look great 30 pounds less. Like, I've really just never given up on this dream of wearing a Speedo. Like, I feel like it's still there, and some of you are like, it's not, ever, never, not 60, not 100 pounds, never, and so I'm just going to admit it. I clicked on it, and I just wanted to say, and of course it was this like a drug that overpromised, underdelivered, and obviously I didn't take it and buy it, and it's just this thing. And at the end of it, I was like, man, why did I get sucked into that? Like, why did I even click on that? And here's kind of what's true about you, and it's true about me, is we want instant results. Like this is what we want this, all of us. It's why you buy a face cream that promises to instantly remove years, It's why, we want investments that bring instant return. We want products that will instantly undo all kinds of behavior and change lives. And so I just thought, what if I could go to the Bible, as we don't have a lot of time together today, what if I could go to the Bible and give you the instant results? Like the things in Scripture that say instantly your faith would improve. So that's what I've decided to do. And I'm going to do it over the next few weeks. But listen, I'm going to tell you, there's not a lot of them. The Bible is not full of instant results. It's full of results, but most of them take time and growth, and they challenge us. But there are a few things in the Bible that are instant results, and so I'm going to give them to you in this series. And I'm going to give you the first one today. Are you ready for the first one? Yes, you're ready for the first one? Okay, here's the first one. You can see instant results the moment you choose to follow Jesus. You choose to follow Jesus. Now, I know some of you are like, well, that's a very pastoral thing to say. Thank you. It's like so predictable. And listen to me. If you've been in church for a long time and you think, well, I'm already doing that, or this is your first day and you just say, I'm just here for the pizza, listen, I'm going to help you out. This has got more to it than you think it's got to it. As a matter of fact, this is a pretty big claim, but I'm going to make it. I believe that the reason you may not be satisfied with your spiritual life is because of this. Like, and that means you could have been in church for years, or it means this is the first time you've ever come in one. I believe that the reason you haven't gotten what you wanted out of your faith is because of this. And see, here's what the reality is for most of the people in this room. At some point in your life, whether you're a student or you're a senior, you decided to address the spiritual category you were going to be in. Like you said, I guess I need to have a label. I need to do something. And so you explored them, you considered them. Maybe you saw what your family had done. And at some point, most of you chose to be known as a Christian. You're in the Christian category. Like that's the box you check on the forms. If someone asked you, you would say, yeah, I'm a Christian. And here's what that means for many of you. What that means is that at some point you took on a label. At some point, you made a pledge. At some point, you may said a prayer, or you even decided to start attending, a church or some meetings, And here's the thing. You decided to do those things, and all of those are good. No problem with any of those. But listen to me. Jesus didn't invite you to do any of those things. And so all of a sudden, you start going, well, what? Maybe that's why my faith's not what I want it to be. See, because for many of you, the reality is you took a label, but you haven't seen anything really change around your life. For some of you, you started attending a thing, but you got to be honest, you leave kind of confused and empty. It's not like really adding. And for some of you, you said the pledge, but you're not really that different. And you look at other people and you say, well, something's working for them because their faith is doing something and mine's not. And here's what's basically happened. You bought what Jesus wasn't selling. You decided to take on an invitation that he never gave. Because Jesus never invited you to wear a label, to make a pledge, or to attend anything. Jesus' invitation throughout Scripture is extremely clear. Jesus says, come follow me. And it's very particular that he says that. It says it in Matthew 4:19. He says it, Jesus called out to them and says, come follow me. And he says it again and again and again to anyone he meets from any walk of life. He says, come follow me. Never invites for the label, never invites for the pledge, never invites. He says, come follow me. So what if the reason your faith's not what you want it to be is because you took something that he's not selling? And so then it kind of begs this question. Why this? Like, I mean, Jesus is going to be pretty intentional with his words. Why this invitation? Well, I'll tell you, it's real simple. Because what you're going to discover today and what God knows about us is that the reason Jesus says, come follow me, is because in life, one of the things we need most is a guide. A guide. And I'm going to show it to you. The other day, I was eating lunch with a friend, and he wanted to go to this very a creatively decorated restaurant, which is great. You know, we went there, and I wanted to wash my hands before we ate, and so I said I'm going to go to the restroom, but I couldn't find it. There are all this creative elements and decor. I couldn't find it, so I asked the server, and they said, "Oh, it's back there," and they kind of pointed in a general area, and so I eventually never did find the sign for the restrooms, but I found the restroom, and I'm in there and I'm washing my hands. And all of a sudden, I start looking around and I go, man, this restroom's a lot larger than most of the time when I go to the restroom. You know, it's just, and there's a lot of extra stalls in here. Like, there's a lot of stalls. And then all of a sudden it strikes me, you know, there's not even any urinals in here. That's weird. And I'm washing my hands, not thinking anything of it. And I don't think anything of it till I open the door and two ladies are walking in where I'm walking out, and they give me the look like you are the creep of creeps. And it's like Live at 5, pastor arrested while being in women's restroom. Like, I mean, that story illustrates two things. It illustrates two things. That restrooms should be clearly marked. And it also illustrates this. We have a propensity to get off course because we're not good guides. I mean, if I can't even find the right restroom, I don't need to be leading me. And the same thing's true of you. You say, I'm going to prove it to you. I'm going to show you why we're not good guides. Because, listen, where I ended up was laughable, but where a lot of people end up under self-guidance is a lot more serious. They end up in debt and divorce and debilitating addictions because we're not good guides. And I'll show you. Here, I'll give you 3 reasons we're not good guides. Here's the first one. We're not good guides because we follow our intentions. Our intentions. It's interesting. As you talk to people, anyone who's ever ended up in a troubled place in their life, they didn't intend to be there. Like, no one gets married and says, I hope one day we'll be miserable. Like nobody starts a business and says, one day I intend for this to go bankrupt. No, nobody does that. We never, why is it we end up in so many places we never intended to be? Here's why. Here's why. Because our decisions, not our intentions, determine where we arrive. Our decisions in life, your daily decisions actually determine where you go, not your intentions. And the problem is a lot of times your decisions and your intentions, they don't line up. Like, I intend to be in shape, but my decisions are to put Oreos in my mouth. You intend to marry an integral, moral, great guy, but your decisions say you'll date anybody. It's true. Your intention is to retire debt-free. Your decisions show that you're trying to keep up with the Joneses. Your intentions, everybody here, your intention is to live a vibrant spiritual life. But your decisions show that you don't prioritize God. And so here's what I'm trying to say. We're not good guides because our good intentions often distract us from where we're honestly heading. And you can have all the intentions you want to be all that you can and to do all you can and be, in spiritual. You can have, but the real question is not what are your intentions, but where are you heading? Because we're not good guides. Because direction, not intention, determines destination. Now, here's the next one. We're not good guides because we follow the herd. We do. Have you ever watched one of those like National Geographic specials and it's like, over the Serengeti of Kenya and it's this herd of zebra migrating. I love stuff like that. And eventually the herd is going to have to cross a river and it's during their crossing of the river that the crocodiles it's like buffet and like all the crocodiles are eating all the zebras. And what I just don't understand is I don't understand how the zebras at the back of the pack don't go, I don't think I'm going to follow them any longer. I'm not going to go. But yet here the whole herd keeps going no matter they see it, and it's often to their detriment. Now here's what's funny. We do the same thing. We upgrade because they upgraded. We sign our kids up for it because they sign their kids up for it, even though we don't have the time. We don't like them, not because them did anything to us, but because she doesn't like them. And if you're not careful, you're going to keep following the herd and you're going to spend your life and your money and your time and someone else is going to be in the lead and it's going to be to your detriment. And here's the craziest thing about that. Most of the people we're following aren't any further than we are. Think about that. They're not been married longer than you are. You're getting marriage advice from people who got broken marriage. Their kids are as crazy as your kids. It just doesn't make any sense. Their faith isn't formed, and you're asking them what God thinks they should do. Let me say, taking your life cues from someone who's in the same place you are is like getting directions and following them from someone who's never been where you want to go. It doesn't make any sense to do that. Listen, friends are for fun, but they're not for following. That's right. Friends are for fun, but they're not for following. And that's one of the reasons we're poor guides. Here's the last one. We're poor guides because we follow our feelings. Man, we follow our feelings. Now, you're just going to have to trust me on this. I have sat in countless moments with people whose eyes are filled with tears and hearts filled with regret because they have arrived somewhere they never intended or desired to be. And I've had them time after time after time, and it breaks my heart. And again, look at me and say, how did this happen? I didn't see this coming. If there's anything I could change, I would do it over. And here's what always happens. When you start tracing it back, this same phrase always comes up. And here's the phrase. I was just following my heart. I was just following my heart. You've said it, I've said it, they say it. Now listen to me. That sounds very poetic. And in a culture that says you do you live your truth, it sounds like the right thing to say to follow your heart. But here's what you and I have learned, and if you're honest about this, you'll admit it. Our hearts often lead us to places we never, ever wanted to end up. It was an angry heart that led you to a life of bitterness. It was an angry heart that led you to push away relationships that you now regret leaving. It's an excited heart that led you to the place where you lost your marriage to adultery. It was an insecure heart that led you to a place where you overspend. It's in a heart that's looking to escape that leads us to dabble and then eventually become addicted to things. Now here's just the reality of it is that the danger of following your feelings is your feelings are never honest about where they're taking you. Yes. They tell you we're going to go one place, but they end up taking you somewhere totally different. And you know what's funny? We're just figuring this out, but God's known this forever. And that's why in the Old Testament, he had a prophet, like a holy man, write. And it is so clear. You're reading like, I wish I'd have known that 10 years ago. Look at this. Jeremiah 17:9. Jeremiah writes, the heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. He says, you can't trust your heart. You can't follow your heart. It's deceitful. Listen, and he's very particular in his words. He didn't say the heart is dishonest. He didn't say it just lies. He said it's deceitful. It tricks you. Listen here. Our hearts have the ability to make us think they're heading in the right direction while leading us astray. Our hearts make us think this is what we want, but when we arrive, it's not at all what we wanted. Our hearts make us think we want to leave there, and our hearts have such an ability, he says, to deceive us. It reminds me of this story that many, you probably all heard about. A couple months ago, the world was captured by this story of a boys' soccer team getting trapped underground in Thailand. Maybe you saw it on the news, and this went on for weeks. Well, I don't know if you looked into this story, but here's what happened is, after a soccer practice, these boys and their coach decided they want to just have some fun. And so they decided to go into these local caves, and they just figured, hey, we're just going to have some fun. We're just going to enjoy ourselves for a day. We don't need a guide. We can figure this out ourselves. And so they went in there with no guidance, and after a few hours of fun, there's some twists and turns, and then they get in so deep that they start going, wait a minute, there's this moment where they realize they don't know the way out. They're kind of lost. And in a critical decision, when they realize they're lost, you know what they try to do? They say, well, if we keep just going a little further, I think this is going to work out. And they go deeper into the caves. And that's when the unexpected happened. Torrential rains come and fill the cave up with water, trapping the coach and this team in underground with no one knowing they're there. And what's really so easy to see now about this story is where they thought they were going and where they ended up are completely different. What they thought they were going to enjoy and instead what they had to endure are completely different. And not only that, it cost them a lot. It cost them weeks in darkness and in fear. It cost them time without food and family. It even cost someone, if you know the story, it cost someone their life. Now, I'd put money on it that there are some of you here today that feel exactly like those boys felt. Because there was a point where you decided this seems like the right way to go. This will be enjoyable. This is good. And you got into a decision or a relationship or a habit or whatever it is, and you said, this is fun, this is good. And you started taking some twists and turns, and there was a point where you go, okay, I may be lost, but you know what you said to yourself? I can get myself out of this. And instead, you went deeper into it. And it's now you're trapped. And it's costing you some things in life. It's costing you some relationships or some time, some people, some peace. And what you need is what those boys needed. You need a guide to rescue you. Amen. You need someone who can come where you are, in the pain you are, in the worry you are, and can lead you out of it. Now, this is one of the most interesting details about that story, is that once the boys were found, and once the guides got to them, the instructions that these boys were given was very specific. They were told to 100% trust their guide. As a matter of fact, they said if you don't trust the guide, that you put your life in danger. And so they were told to completely surrender to their guide as they were being pulled out. Listen, they were told, don't you try to help swim. Don't you try to help navigate. Don't try to pull through. We don't need any of your strength. We don't need your ideas. We just need you to completely surrender and let your guide maneuver you through these passages. Now, I've pastored long enough to realize this. There are a lot of people who think they're following Jesus. And in reality, they've invited Jesus to follow them. They've invited Jesus to follow their purpose, their will, their dreams. I just want you to listen to me. God's guidance only comes to the completely surrendered. Christianity does not work halfway. And that may be why your label and your pledge and your moment and your occasional, that's why it's not working, is because Christianity doesn't work halfway. Some of you have committed a part of your life to God, but you only see his guidance when you commit your whole life to him. And you need to have a moment like those boys did, where you surrender it and you say, you know what, God, I'm not a good guy, and I'm gonna give you all of it this time. I'm not just gonna give you that one moment. I'm not just gonna, God, I cannot lead my life. I need you to do that. You need to have a moment like that. And here's what I want you to know, that this is not like a big faith decision. This is actually a wise decision. As a matter of fact, the wisest man to ever live, history accounts, his name is King Solomon. And King Solomon was an expert in the wisest person to ever live in all of history. He knew economics, he knew militaristic issue, he knew social issue, he knew everything. People would come from near and far to hear of his wisdom. If anyone could have been a good guide for themselves, if anyone could have led themselves, it would have been King Solomon. And yet, here's what he writes in Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not rely on your own understanding. Think about him in all your ways, and then he will guide you on the right path. Here's what Solomon says. And if anybody could have done it, it'd have been him. And he says, you know what? I figured out I can't lead me. He said, so you know what? My best advice for you, don't you trust in your heart. Trust God with your heart. Don't you trust your heart, because it's deceitful, but you can trust God with your heart. Here's what he says. He says, if you'll lean out of your self-guidance and lean into God's guidance, look at what happens. The right paths appear. If you'll stop trying to do it and let God do it, the right doors open up. And the best part about it is instantly. Instantly. Listen to me. The reason you can trust God is very clear. He's been where you are. God is not sitting on some divine throne above in all his cosmic glory, unable to grasp where you are. That's the whole reason Jesus even came to this earth. Jesus came so that he could live like you've lived. He could experience what you've experienced. He could hurt like you've hurt, so that when you struggle, Jesus says, I know exactly what it is to struggle like that. The reason Jesus even lived 33 years is not because he was just touring the place. He could have been born and died and paid the penalty that had to be paid. Instead, he said, I'll stay here so that I know exactly what they're going through. You can trust him completely because he knows where you are. Listen, this is the best part. You can trust him completely because he's been where you want to be. See, God's not bound by space and time. He's able to walk out of where you are today and go into your future and see how it works out. And for some of you, he's walked out of your present marriage struggle, but he sees when your marriage is what you've always wanted it to be. He's walked out of your struggle with that addiction, and he's walked into your freedom and seen how you live above it. He's walked out of all the problems that are currently present, and he's seen your future, and he sees how under his guidance, it works out. Listen, because he's seen it, he can take you to it. That's why he's a perfect guide. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to give you 3 things that change instantly when you choose to follow Jesus. I'm just wrap it up this way. Choose to follow Jesus today. 3 things that happen instantly. Here it is. Number 1, when you follow Jesus, you instantly change. The other day I was talking to someone. I was kind of sharing with them about just struggles I've had and how I was unloving and kind of selfish and hard-hearted. And they just kind of said, really? They said, I have a hard time picturing you like that. You're so encouraging and helpful and kind. And I just said to him, I said, then you should have known me before Jesus. Listen, I'm not up here sharing this because Incredible Pizza is not ready. It's ready. I'm sharing this because I know what it's like to be broken and hurting and struggling. And I know what it's like not to want to look yourself in the mirror. I know what it's like to carry secrets. I know what it's like to try to fix yourself and fail again and again and again. But listen to me. I know what it's like to have the love and mercy of Jesus Christ come into your life and so transform you that you cannot think something is that good, and it really is. I know what it's like for him to take just hurt out and put peace in. I know what it's like for him to take all the mess ups and somehow turn something productive out of them. I know what it's like to wake up and not wonder if God is mad at me, but to know he loves me and wants to guide me. I know what it's like to be brand new, and I want you to know that, because that's what Scripture says happens when you choose to follow Jesus. It says in 2 Corinthians 17, it says, when someone becomes a Christian, he becomes a brand new person inside. Brand new. And he's never the same. A new life begins. So that's the first one. Here's the second one. When you follow Jesus, your eternal destination instantly changes. Now most of you have jobs, and there's requirements of your job. This is a requirement. What I'm about to tell you is a requirement of my job. That because I'm a pastor, God requires me, he charges me to make sure that people know two things. Here's the first one. You will live for eternity. This is not all there is. Your 60, 70, 80 years, this isn't it. Your last breath on earth is your first breath in eternity, and you're going to spend a lot more time there than here. And you need to know that. Now listen, the second thing I need you to know is based on what you do to choose to follow Jesus determines where you spend eternity. And there's only one or two destinations, and you already know them. Jesus, you'd be shocked if you read Scripture. Jesus talks again and again and again about this. He's so clear and so consistent, and again and again and again describes both of those destinations, describes how to choose them, because he wants to make sure that you choose right. And he's very clear that hell is a place of utter despair. It is utter darkness. It is completely separated from all love and those who love you and a God who loves you. It is torturous and abusive, and it is alone, and it is absolutely 100% a place where there is constant crying, constant wailing, and constant regret for being there. And Jesus is also extremely clear that heaven is a beautiful, peaceful, and restful place. That we're not going to be sitting on clouds playing harps like chubby angels, that you will know everyone and you will love everyone, and there will be no longer any pain or disease or cancer or racism or debt or abuse. There will be no more of that, and your relationship, this is the best part, your relationship with Jesus will be unhindered. And Jesus talks so much about it, and he charges me to tell you, because they're real. People really go to them. And he wants to make sure that there's no mistake in where you end up. Listen, God didn't create hell for people. God created hell for Satan. And any person who's ever ended up in hell, it breaks God's heart, and it was against his plan for their life. And so I want to be clear. It instantly changes. Now here's the last one. When you follow Jesus, the course of your life instantly changes. People today are so tired and unsatisfied. And you know why? Because they're not living for anything significant. I mean, they're not living. If your day is just waking up, eating, breakfast, going to work, eating lunch, coming home, eat dinner, watch Netflix, and do that all over again, what kind of life is that? That's not what God planned for your life. I'm telling you, when you choose to follow Jesus, it opens up a journey you couldn't dream how great it is. It takes you something exciting and fun, and God puts you in places with people that you never dreamed you could connect. He pulls things out of you, and daily you watch his hand pull things out of you didn't know were there to impact people around you. It is the most exciting, exhilarating journey that you get to learn and discover why you were put on this very earth, and why you're different from you and you're different from you. It's because God wants to use you all to do extraordinary things and leave an impact. I love it. D.L. Moody probably wraps it up. He's like tweet master. Look at this. Let God have your life. He can do more with it than you can. Let God have your life. He can do more with it than you can. Don't settle to just graduate, earn some money, climb the ladder, accumulate some stuff, get some kids, and retire. God put you on this earth for a purpose, and when you follow Jesus, you live that out. Now listen, I know that for some of you, you're like, man, that's good. Isn't he good? He's great. Isn't he? I mean, he's good. Some of you are thinking that, right? No, I'm kidding. Listen, I know some of you are thinking, this is good. I want this. This is great. I wish I'd heard this 10 years ago. Man, I wish I'd heard this before I got in this relationship or picked up this habit. Man, this is so good. But I'm just too far gone. Like, I've taken too many wrongs. Listen, the other day I was in a city that was unfamiliar to me, and I was trying to get to a destination, and I couldn't figure it out. And so I opened my phone and turned on my GPS. And the GPS gave me the directions, and I was heading to the destination, but I was in the wrong lane, and so the traffic was thick, and I missed my first turn because I couldn't get over. And so the GPS would tell me to turn, and I can't, and then it tells me to turn again, but I missed that turn because I'm distracted because I just missed a turn. And next thing you know, I'm up on a ramp going on an interstate in the opposite direction of where I wanted to go. Now, here's what I find very interesting in that moment is I'm heading in the opposite direction of where I want to go, and my GPS at no point says, well, you're on your own now. I'm sorry, I can't help you get there. If you won't listen to me, if you won't do what I tell you, I'm sorry, I can't help you get there from here. Instead, it doesn't say, all it just keeps saying is, recalculating, and I'm telling you, it doesn't matter how many wrong turns you've taken in your life. God continues to say, I'm just recalculating every decision to bring you back to my plan for your life. I'm telling you, that's the way it works. So listen to me. God's plan B for your life is way better than your plan A. And I just want you to know, this is the best part of all of it. The fastest way to God's perfect path for your life is to simply start following him today. I mean, you said my marriage is so, and my emotions are so. I'm just telling you, it doesn't matter how deep and dark it is where you're at. The fastest way to get back to God's perfect path is to start following him today. Hey, listen, you don't believe me? I'll prove it to you. I want you to check out this story and see the difference a year of following Jesus can make.
Hi, I'm Ray McElligott. What first got me involved with drugs was I had a back injury. Opioids became my best friend, and I couldn't live without it. I chose drugs over my family, my friends, even my own children. I put my kids and my entire family through so much, but I did know that if I continued using, I would die. The day before I left to go into treatment was Sunday Funday last year, and I was getting ready to leave. I went up to Pastor Joe and Kayla and I was like, can you please pray for me? I really need God's guidance right now. Throughout treatment, it was so hard, and I felt so lost being there, being 4 hours away from home, but I realized God was still there for me, and he always has been. I still didn't understand that until I got to the treatment center. There were a lot of younger women there. There was an 18-year-old, a 19-year-old, and reminded me of my daughter. And I saw what I put her through. I heard her words through these young women. So I knew at that moment that God had me on his path, on his time in my life. August 13th was 1 year. And I can't get the smile off my face because it's a new life that God has chosen for me. And I never, ever want to go back to where I was. I came here, I think it was a month after I got back that I was rebaptized. And I came up out of that water laughing and smiling, and I can't even describe the feeling that I had. And at that moment when people were clapping their hands and praising God along with me, and congratulations and everything else. I knew this is where I was supposed to be. And I'm so truly blessed that God has given me this chance at my life. Now I know the current direction of my life is this walk with Jesus.
Come on, that's awesome, isn't it? Celebrate what God's done in her life. So good. I want to tell you just a little bit more of her story. She's been sober for over a year now, and what God's done with her following, I mean, it's unbelievable. But she was invited back by her treatment facility to come and speak to all those who are currently in treatment about the difference that following Jesus can make in someone's life. I mean, imagine that. What you thought was going to destroy you, God uses to help other people. That's what he wants to do with your life. And so this is so simple. I'm going to finish it up. To follow, you really only have to do two things. You have to decide a new course, and then you just have to take the steps. So all you got to do is make a decision, and then you just got to take the steps. Today, I'm going to let you make a decision. And then the steps, well, there's a lot to that. That's why we're here. We exist as a church to help you take those steps. And so you don't get them confused, because sometimes we want to take the steps before we make the decision. You don't have to get it all figured out, change it all, switch everything, stop this, start that. That's the steps. And we'll figure that out over time. We'll help you with that. Today's just the decision.